This morning, we're following the impact of a ruling that could put hundreds of thousands of people at risk for deportation. A federal judge in Texas declared that the Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals, or DACA program, is illegal despite recent changes. Joining us now, former Texas Congressman Beto O'Rourke, who represented the El Paso area. Beto, it's always a pleasure to see you, my friend. So let's just start with the basic. Legal status for Dreamers is something that is supported by overwhelming majorities, both Republicans, Democrats, conservatives, and liberals. Why can't this get done?
We should credit President Biden for trying to make these changes to bring DACA into legal compliance and remove the uncertainty from hundreds of thousands of our fellow Americans who've only known this country as their own. They speak English as their primary or perhaps only language, are contributing far more to our economy and to the life of our communities than they could ever take back. And he did his best to try to make sure that they would have the certainty to be able to stay here. But this judge has ruled to the contrary. Now it is clearly more than ever up to Congress, especially those Republicans who stood in the way of legalizing the presence of Dreamers, hundreds of thousands of our fellow Americans, to do the right thing. So we applaud President Biden, and now we ask Congress to do their job.
But, you know, odds are Congress won't. Let's be honest.
That's right. Here's the other opportunity for President Biden. As your previous segment just highlighted, he's had a tough week politically, and the waters look pretty rough over the next year in terms of his reelection. One way to steady that and to increase excitement within the base of the Democratic Party is to really take some bold leadership on the issue of immigration. As you and I have discussed before, we have a real challenge at the Texas-Mexico border where Governor Greg Abbott has deployed these floating buoys, which are really drowning devices that have contributed to the deaths and drownings of dozens of migrants, including children, when you take into account the razor wire and the militarization that he has presided over. President Biden could step in right now and save lives and provide the kind of order, certainty, and legal pathways that both those migrants and the American people want. I think that could be a great first step in setting the stage for his second term, where Jose, he leads on not just DACA, but on comprehensive immigration reform. No president at the beginning of their term in office has used their political capital sufficient enough to get this done. That's why Ronald Reagan was the last president to preside over comprehensive immigration reform. I'd love to see President Biden do that, and it would excite those Democrats who are currently on the fence or unexcited about the president right now.
Beto, what do you see as that first step that you think the president could take now? What steps are you asking for?
A couple of things. As we know, given the situation in New York City and New York State, one of the great challenges is the lack of work authorization for migrants and asylum seekers who are already here. They're dependent on public generosity, on public housing in New York, and they're unable to earn an income. The president unilaterally could make it legal for them to work, to earn an income, to pay back, and no longer be a demand on the public purse. Secondly, he could improve access to CBP-1. That is the application process for asylum seekers right now. It is so bottlenecked that you have people crossing in between ports of entry, creating or contributing to that chaos that we're seeing right now. Again, the president could lead on that and provide a safe, legal, orderly path for people to come here. And third, he must stand up to Greg Abbott. This cruelty that we're seeing at the U.S.-Mexico border, which in addition to the deaths that I've described, has done nothing to improve our safety or our security. The Wall Street Journal said after $4 billion spent, we are not more secure at our border. We're actually seeing more crossings, not less. These are three things the president could do right now that would set the stage, not just for his own reelection, but for a very successful second term that begins with comprehensive immigration reform.
Beto, do you have any faith that any comprehensive immigration reform could, I'm not talking about come to reality, but even a process start on Capitol Hill, which is a place where it seems like there is no possibility of bipartisan work or even conversations?
I do believe it can happen. And I was on Capitol Hill for 6 years. I was there in 2014, the last best chance that we had to move forward on comprehensive immigration reform under President Obama. What we need is for a president at the very beginning of their term to use the political capital they have after that election to move forward on this issue. It's that big, that challenging, and will require that kind of power to move forward. The same power that President Obama used in 2009 and 2010 to expand healthcare access to millions of our fellow Americans. He could only do it in that political window. That's the window that will be open to a reelected President Biden if he chooses to use it. But the best way to get there, to get to that second term, is to start leading on this issue now. All of us want that. Democrats, independents, many Republicans alike. And the president has a chance to step up and live up to the campaign promises that he made back in 2020.
Former Congressman Beto O'Rourke, it's always a pleasure to see you. I thank you for your time.